Morning everyone. We are up and out early with the larks today, and we are in Northiam in East Sussex again. Northiam is where my Tufton ancestors come from, as you learned the other day when we visited Great Dixter House. There's some lovely houses and stuff here. Port of call for today is my friends have gone to Great Dixter House again because Rob's camera messed up a little bit the other day. He wants to get some more photos. Simon didn't come to Great Dixter the other day. He went fishing with young Brian, and now he wants to go to Great Dixter. So they've gone to do that, and they've dropped me off here, and I'm going to go to St Mary's Church in Northiam and visit the grave of my ancestor Sir Nicholas Tufton and his wife Lady Marjorie. But today, or just now rather, we're at the old this plaque was erected at Conservation Society in 2000. Sorry, me reading something and not showing you. Oh wow. John Johnson and his family lived in Ewhurst Lane in Northiam from 1975 until his death in 1988. Flying Officer Hilary Patrick Michael Elridge, one of the few, 22nd Squadron Royal Air Force. His Spitfire M1K9939 crashed near this spot following air combat around midday on Wednesday the 30th of October 1940 during the Battle of Britain. Although rescued from the crash, he later succumbed to his injuries and died that afternoon. He was 21 years old. Oh, bless him. Oh, I'm glad I come and focused on this today then. I thought the signs might have actually told you a little of the history of this bit. It's obvious, just the local parish pump. And that bit's disabled, but that would be the pump handle for it. Ah, there we are. As grateful thank offering, this well is presented to the villagers of Northiam, May 1907. ECM, let him that is athirst come, and whosoever will let him take the water of life freely. Revelations XX11:17. Yeah, I wonder if it works. No. Yeah, it's interesting though. I love things like this. Now we should go to church. Well, there's an old pipe there as well. They've got one of these in Rye, but nothing like this. Their one is just like a big brick tower. Very interesting. We forget that we've got running, well, most of us have got running water to hand, and you don't think of it, do you, that in the days before that, this is where people got their water from. Right, well that was an interesting little curio, wasn't it, my little petals? Now we're off up to St Mary's Church in Northiam. So, I'll give you another little view of that. I'll pause you for a minute because there's someone coming. Start you back up again. There we go. Just a couple of people coming in. You know, I don't like filming people without their consent. It's not fair. That, I should imagine, is a war memorial. We'll check that out later. So I've not quite finished with Northiam village yet. I'm told St Mary's Church is up here, so we shall see. This just looks like houses. We'll see. Ah, there we are. Here it is. St Mary's Church. Here we are, guys and girls. We have arrived. Removal of hat. Oh, and it's cold as well. I hope this is open. If it isn't, I am going to be very, very gutted. My ancestor's buried inside here. Sir Nicholas Tufton. He was a knight. Well, if worst comes to the worst, it'll be a nice exterior and churchyard tour. Oh gosh, it does look as if it's closed as well. I'll walk round this way and see. Oh, I'm gutted about that. If it is closed. Yeah. Yeah, this is the back way, I think. Oh well. You win some, you lose some, as they say. Yeah. Oh, I'm actually quite upset about this. What a shame. It's a lovely church. I suppose I'll go and meet my friends at Great Dixter. That's a real shame, because it says, if you check the website, it says that it's open. I may ring the number, I've got the number, so I'll try that and see. Alright everyone, I'll end this one, and then I'll probably do a churchyard tour, because I'm here now, so I might as well make something of the day. Yeah, I'm actually quite fed up with that one. I really wanted to get inside here and see it. What a shame. Right, take care all, see you all soon. Right everyone, this is a novelty, isn't it? An unattended church left open for people. Goodness, if they had this in London, I dread to think. Now last time I came here, the doors were open and church wardens were and everything. That wasn't about 2011 though, so there we are. How's that for an old bolt? Turn that off. And this is a very, very special one today for me, which you will see, ouch, as we go along. That hurt, that was my shoulder. Some lovely flowers. Welcome to St Mary's Church in Northiam. The reason I'm here today is this is the burial place of several of my ancestors, including Sir Nicholas Tufton, who we saw the other day. Now, I was talking to the husband of a church warden outside, and he said there's also a Tufton place here as well. Now, when I first started my family history search, when I typed in Tufton Place, it took me to things about Great Dixter. What I didn't know, and this man very, very kindly told me, is that Great Dixter wasn't built by Sir Nicholas. It was built by Sir Nicholas's great-grandfather, the Wakehurst side of the family. And he says that maybe St Nicholas was raised by his grandparents there or something, because there is a Tufton place in Northiam, which is an oast house thing now, but there was a very, very old house on there. So I don't think Great Dixter is the one that St Nicholas lived in when he was an older man. So that was my mistake, and you learn something new every day. I once went for 10 years thinking that an ancestor was a direct grandfather link, and it turned out he wasn't. He was the direct grandfather link's brother. The timbers and roof of this church are all from the 1300s. It's not got a lot of stained glass in it because, don't forget, when old Henry VIII came along, he got rid of all that. This is why the St Nicholas's tomb, in Victorian times, basically this church, the floor of it was more or less falling apart, and it was quite bad. Similar to how the church in the Tower of London is, or was in Victorian times. And basically they had to redo the floor in here. A lot of the old tombs that were on the floor had to be either moved or taken away. And what a very, very kind rector did, and thank goodness he did it, he made a very detailed map of where each tomb had been. The brasses or memorials that they could take up were put onto the wall, including St Nicholas's one, which is what we'll see soon. But we know from this verger's burial plan where St Nicholas's grave was. Sir Nicholas Tufton, 1479 to 1538, was the sheriff and coroner of Northiam. He also would have had some dealings in Rye occasionally, because he appears in some of the records there too. I thought that was my only link to this place, and then about a year, just over a year ago, getting some more information on my mum's family, side of the family, we discovered that one of my mum's ancestors came from Rye itself, and I didn't know that. So that was it's strange, isn't it? All these different things that seem to tie me to this lovely place. There we are. Beautiful stained glass. This is St Anne, in memory of Samuel and Charlotte Picks, 1879 this window is, but you'll see that in a minute. That's St Anne, and that's the in memory of Samuel and Charlotte Picks. And then this is St Simeon. So this particular window dates from 1879. And it's very nice. Real fine and pretty. These arches are Norman, by the way. The Wakehursts and Tuftons and Culpepers all married into each other. Sir Richard Wakehurst, who is also my ancestor, is Sir Nicholas's great-grandfather. He was a knight as well. He's buried here, but there is no, and there wasn't in Victorian times any surviving remnants of his tomb, because from his will you can tell that he was an ardent Catholic. So the tomb would have been filled with Catholic symbolisms, and that's why that's gone. And that is also, when the Victorian renovation had to happen, the man that did the burial map thing noted down about St Nicholas's tomb that only but little of the original brass remains, which was what we're going to see. But it was originally a big stone block on the floor with a brass tablet for St Nicholas and a brass tablet for his wife, and at the bottom, at their feet, was a brass tablet with 3 tiny little people. That's for their children that would have died in infancy. By Victorian times, all that remained was one square plaque. St Nicholas's wife and children died before the Reformation, so the tomb would have had Catholic symbolism. It would have been taken away. St Nicholas died in 1538, right on the cusp of when all the Reformation was starting. Bits of his tomb were removed, but his nameplate wasn't. Sun's shining right through that. Lovely. Remember ye in the Lord. Captain Hilberton Lavery KO Regiment, who fell in South Africa AD 1901. Also Lieutenant Colonel George Lavery RI Rifles, who fell at Neve. I can't even make out that second word. AD 1915. I can't take the flower display down, but I will show you as best as I can. I'll try and read it out at least. Remember ye, Lord Colonel Charles Bradford Brown, King's Regiment, who entered into rest at Le Mans 6th of October AD 1909. A lot of stained glass windows, when a person died and they left money to a church, or they may have left money for a window to be arranged, or the family, if the person's buried inside the church in the floor, like other than outside in the graveyard, that sometimes serves as their memorial stone. Or memorial, not stone. Men of the 1914-18 war. This pillar is as old as the very early, this church was, when this was built, this pillar was the first things they put up. The roof has changed a little bit over time, the floors changed, the windows have changed. When Henry VIII came along, all the colour was ripped and stripped out of it. But this pillar has remained, and this pillar would have seen all that history, English history, my own family history. Absolutely love that. Holy water stoop. When you came into a church in those days, as you go into a Catholic church, the holy water stoop, and then you can dab the water on your head and cross yourself. There is writing under that one, but I would have to move all this, which is all put in place carefully, and an entire flower display, and I'm not going to do that, guys and girls, I'm afraid. I am clumsy as it is. Interesting little curio, well, not curio, but interesting little bit over there, but it is locked, unfortunately. I have tried my little trick keys and none of them fit. William Forbes Fisher, 1863 to 1937. That's the man's name that was born in New Haven, USA, as is given by his wife. And this is his wife. And this one, I'm afraid, is a bit worn, so even I had a job making this one out. Also, in memory of his wife, Mary, who later married Major General Dupree. Her ashes repose beneath this window. So that's William Forbes Fisher and his wife, and she remarried but was buried here, so maybe a little bit of a love match thing going on there. Wonder what the second husband thought of that if he was alive, but might have arranged it, you never know. I normally always save an altar till last, but I'm doing it differently today. They say the best aspect for me is my ancestors in this church, and I'm saving that bit till last. like it or not, that's what you got. The Royal Arms, 1713, Anna Regina, Queen Anne. That's better. Lovely church. Look at that, look. All from the 1300s. This was covered up until Victorian times. When the Victorians come along, this had a false ceiling on it. And the funny thing is, the same thing happened at the church in Barking. And when the Victorians come along and took the false ceiling down, they couldn't believe that such a thing had been covered up. And the Victorians were quite heavy-handed sometimes with their churches, but I do agree with them in that one. And you've got these tiny little windows up here. A lot of churches, especially older ones, have their windows up quite high. Even the lower down windows. One, so it casts more light into the church, but also so the congregation wouldn't be distracted by things going on outside the church. You know, you see something go by, catches your eye, you lose place of the vicar's sermon. Vicar might be angry with you, might give you a good hiding. I haven't seen any church wardens ones here. This is the pulpit. Which I shall not be going into because that's highly disrespectful. I think only the clergy should go onto the pulpit. This is the bit I was on about that's locked. It's a little chantry chapel. That's the coat of arms of the family that paid for the restoration and recreation, or whatever you want to call it, of this. Yeah, window's filthy. Frewen, widow of John Turner. Lovely stained glass in the churches. In here is where the crypt is located. Under there. But I can't get in there, unfortunately. It's locked. With a solid iron door, so there we are. I spoke to one of the church warden's husbands, and he says they keep that bit locked. It's only open for special occasions, and this church is unattended on its own. And I was allowed down into the crypt some years ago when I first came here, and I wouldn't film in there anyway if I was allowed in there, because there are bodies in there, including my ancestors. He was buried in a lead coffin. Not wood and lead, just lead, which was quite usual for those days apparently. And it's so well sealed. And this is an absolutely revolting thought, but the vicar told me about that when I came. He went, have you ever seen the man, because he knows I liked history and archaeology programs. He went to me, have you ever seen the program called The Man in the Lead? I went, yes, I have. And it was basically a crusader went away to the Crusades, died abroad, but was a knight, like my ancestor, and his friends or brothers or whoever had him sealed in lead and brought back home, and he was buried in England, and hundreds of years later the grave was discovered, and the lead coffin that he was buried in was still sealed. When they opened it, well, it was shocking. He hadn't decomposed. It didn't smell anything. You could see the beard, the hair, everything. And when I went down into the crypt, my ancestors buried under there, in that bit down in the crypt. We'll go discuss that a little bit more in a minute, though. That's beautiful, isn't it? I have never, ever been into a church where it's just left open on its own and you can come in and out. So for that reason, guys and girls, I'm going to ask you not to share this one, please. Like it, comment on it and enjoy it, but please don't share it because we know what type of world we live in. And I would be absolutely gutted if anything happened to this. Left side's the Lord's Prayer, then you've got Exodus, and you've got the Credo on the right side. This is the high altar, of course. This is the communion table. When Henry VIII's Reformation happened, and particularly in the reign of Henry VIII's son, King Edward, the Catholic communion was swept away. All the vestments and everything in the parish had, and was let to their communion was to be done at a plain communion table. And this is that communion table. It was given to this church, or sent to this church, or made for, or paid for by the church in 1561, I believe. They did have another one before that, but what happened to that I don't know. But this one was bought then, or acquired then, is what the vicar told me, and I only remember that from my last visit. Right, the organ, very nice. There's lots of people buried under the floor. Let's have a look, see. To the glory of God and in loving memory of Edward Peter Blake, Frewen, Lieutenant Rifle Brigade, killed in action May the 9th, 1943 at Tunisia, given by his mother. Another one of our heroes. And they are heroes, every single one of them to me. They should be to all of us. Right, so I'm going to show you the little bit through that door there. That's how you get into the church tower if you've got the keys, which I haven't. And then last but not least is what we shall go and see my ancestor. Even that lovely old lock, it's a pleasure to come to a place like this, it really is. This is the belfry, obviously, where they ring the bells. The church clock celebrates the silver jubilee of Her Majesty Elizabeth II in 1977. The parishioners of Northiam subscribed generously to the repair and restoration of the clock in the tower of this church. The metal bell frame in this tower was installed, and the bells rehung in 1938 by Maud, Violet and Peter Frewen in memory of Edward and Mary and Thomas Frewen. Northern Parish Church. The following ringers rang Victory Peal on VED, May the 8th, 1945. J. Skinner, J. Crouch, D wood, A. Oh my God. That's just opened itself, and you saw me lock that. Well, God bless you to whoever you are. Can you shut it again? Oh, wow. Wow. Where was I? D Woods. Maybe A Bates, F Payne, and A E Willard. Wow, that is really mad. That actually shook me up a little bit, if I'm honest with you. Oh, crush. That's really mad. You saw me lock it, didn't you? Because I lifted that up and locked it. Look. Ah. Debunked. No? Well, I ain't even going to try and explain that. Now, my little pretties, to my favourite part. Funny enough, first time I came to this church, because the vicar was here at the time then, really nice person, and he said to me, you realise when the spirit is able to manifest, as we're led to believe, even that your ancestors are probably all here with you now, don't you, watching and thinking, this is one of our own. And that's always stuck with me, that whenever I go to a place where my ancestors have been, or have been buried or whatnot. Right, guys and girls, the whole thing is more or less in Latin, apart from his name. Nicholas Tufton. And it says, here lies Nicholas Tufton, knight. It's all in Latin. Basically, it says that he died in his 58th year in the year 1538, and he died, basically, it doesn't tell you this, he died drunk, falling off of his horse when he was drunk. And Deus Amen. But this was part of a much larger tomb brass that was removed in the reign of Henry VIII. So there are others there, but these are here lies the body of John Sean. I've got Wakehurst ancestors that are buried here as well. And from this helpful Victorian clergyman's map, we know that the original tomb was here. It was a stone slab, and there were tombs that ran all along there, because the high altar in those days was more forward, and the tombs ran behind it, and you had Sir Nicholas there, his wife Lady Marjorie. We know she died between 1519 and 1538. That's all we know. And at the foot of the grave, because it was a big stone slab, he was really detailed. There was 61 that they had to, some of them had to be completely broken up, unfortunately, because they wouldn't come up like that. Some were put outside in the churchyard. The ones with brasses that could be like those you saw there were taken off and put on the wall. Yeah, it was a big stone slab, about 6 foot by 2 foot, about grave size basically. And you think of that it would be a grave underneath, but no, he's buried in the crypt. And where he's buried in the crypt is right under this very spot. And as I say, when I first came here, I was allowed in there. And it's like, you know the holy water stoop we saw on the wall, the little alcove thing? That's what it's like. There's 3 alcoves in the wall. One of them's bricked up. His isn't. He's laid in a lead-lined coffin, which suggests that the one bricked up one is his wife, and she was probably buried in a wooden coffin, so they bricked it up for obvious reasons, because of things that happen when you die. And there's a tiny little one right above, and that's basically just, it's really horrible. It's got some fragments of tiny baby bones in there and little pieces of wood. So yeah, that's Sir Nicholas Tufton and Lady Marjorie. And something I found out today from one of the church wardens, or the church warden's husband actually, who's a history enthusiast. Great Dixter House was built by Sir Nicholas's grandfather, Wakehurst, not by Sir Nicholas's father. Sir Nicholas may have been raised there, and there are suggestions that he possibly may have been, but his father built Tufton Place, which is now a host house on the site, is a host house, which is a religious retreat. So Great Dixter, though it is the family home per se, it's not Sir Nicholas's direct family home. Great Dixter is about a quarter of a mile, half a mile away from here, and Sir Nicholas lived very, very near in the village. So that was my mistake, and I'm not laying blame, but in the early days of doing research, it was on Wikipedia. You type in Tufton Place and Northiam Place, and it took me to an article about the Tuftons, and then to a thing about Great Dixter. So yeah, I'll have to correct myself on my descriptions with that one. So yeah, it was built by the Wakehurst family, which was Sir Nicholas's grandfather, and the Wakehurst, Sir Richard Wakehurst, that's where the Culpeppers come into my family, because Sir Richard Wakehurst married an Elizabeth Culpepper. This is in the early to mid 1400s. That direct branch of my family went off into the Tuftons, but the cousin-brother branch of that family went into Sir Thomas Culpepper, and the Culpepper that was killed, executed in the reign of Henry VIII for supposedly sleeping with Catherine Parr. No, sorry, Catherine Howard, sorry, not Catherine Parr. She was a good girl, she was. Yeah, so this is the, down in the crypt, just where this wall is here. These walls mirror down, right down into the crypt. And there's an alcove there, an alcove there, which is bricked up, and an alcove quite high up, higher than I could see into properly. But yeah, and Sir Nicholas is in there, but it's basically, it's weird, because it's just like someone's put a body in lead, rolled it over at the edges, put another piece of lead on top, and just soldered the whole thing together and written and put a plaque on there in Latin. So yeah, there we are. And I'm going to take you back to his memorial plaque, and I will be sharing this one on my family history page as well. So hic jira to Nicholas Tufton. Here lies Nicholas Tufton. It says knight and coroner of this county, and it basically goes on to say that he died, I can't remember, I'm sorry, but I can't remember the month and the day. It was in 1538, and it may not even had the day. Died in 1538. And don't forget, well, any history buffs will know this, anyone that's done their family history, before 1538 there were no baptism, marriage or burial records. They didn't exist. So tracing your family before that time is now impossible, unless you're like me and you're very lucky, and a lot of people are like this. Don't think I'm special. A lot of people find out that they're related to knights and gentry. They reckon 3/4 of the population are somehow descended from medieval knights and the Normans and everything like that, which is how I am, because the Tufton family, there was originally called de Tufton, and originally in Norman French de Tocfton, which they kept the de Tufton when they came over here. And then, unfortunately, happened the war between England and France, the Battle of Agincourt and all that. And it's interestingly similar to what happened in the First World War with our royal family then. All these men and women that were here in the 1500 or 1400s at the Battle of Agincourt thought, oh no, these people are now our enemies and we've all got French names. What are we going to do? So they all dropped the de, and a lot of them anglicised their names. Just how in the First World War the royal family went from Saxe-Coburg-Gotha to Windsor. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the inside of the church. I'll do a nice outside video because my arrival one was like, oh no, the utter disappointment. I will share it though, because it just shows what can happen sometimes. And here it is. This is the one I wanted to show you last, rather than graves and miserable stuff. This is the Tufton coat of arms. Now, in medieval times and Tudor times and whatnot, churches didn't have pews. You may have had a bench along the wall for the old and the sick to sit down. They were the only people that were allowed to sit down. Everyone else stood during services, and they would have knelt and prayed at the appropriate times. Now, Sir Nicholas Tufton, being a knight, would have been right at the very front, and he was the coroner and sheriff as well. So him and his family would have stood right at the front. That coat of arms denotes that he may have stood here, because, as I say, the altar was more forward in those days, because behind that you had where the clergy went, where they did the mass and everything. There was a screen there, and I think the screen is called a rood screen or a reredos, because the breaking of the bread and the doing of the wine, although we're used to seeing it if you go to church, we're allowed to see it. In those days, it was such a sacred thing that some people would actually look down when it was done, and though you could see through the grill of the screen what the priest was doing, it was shielded somewhat. It's such a sacred moment, like the anointing of a king or a queen. Very similar to that. So yeah, there we are, guys and girls. We have St Mary's Church in Northiam. Hope you all enjoyed this one. Take care all, and I shall see you all soon.